Hi, I'm Dale Husband, UX researcher based in Italy, originally from the UK. I'm also the host of the UX All Minds podcast, trying to give back to the UX, especially UXR community. So, how did I get into UXR? It's a good question. Sometimes I ask myself the same question. I've got a kind of a varied background, so studied more tech hardware, then moved more into customer experience, customer support care. So there I worked on a Microsoft project, Office 365 cloud project during my time in Germany. Loved the interaction with customers, with users, helping them set up a cloud project or set up their licenses, obviously help them through the whole journey from deciding what they would like to purchase all the way through to the after support. And that was kind of my first real exposure to understanding users' pain points, identifying where we can improve in the experience for our user or our client, obviously gathering feedback, turning that into actionable outputs. Hadn't heard of UX at that point in my career. Then, through one thing or another, ended up in Italy, ended up in the education sector, and still kind of missed what I experienced in the customer experience side of things. Got introduced to UX through a friend of a friend, and then that's when I decided to go more down the self-taught route, as I realized that UX was what I really wanted to do. It's where my passions lied, and so during the self-taught stage, I studied also some social psychology, and I feel all of the experiences that I had in the past, also in the educational sector, really set me up to be able to really bring those skills and that background to UX and especially UX research. So it's more a case of understanding the methodologies, when to use them, how to properly set up maybe a screener survey, how to identify which users are best for which type of research study that I'm working on. So I was kind of more the self-taught route that I wanted to go down alongside volunteering, alongside shadowing, and that helped me bridge those gaps around more hard skills, let's say, of methodologies, when to use them, etc. And yeah, that's how I transitioned to UX. As I mentioned, did some volunteer work to get some real life experience, moved into freelancing, and eventually into paid contract roles. So working as a team of one UX researcher at a startup, there are many priorities that you need to prioritize, for want of a better word. So yeah, I'll kind of break it down into the 30, 60, 90 days kind of process. So my first 30 days was really just understanding, as a startup, what did they already know about their users? Did they have any users currently? How many are they? Do they have information about their demographics, what they're using, what they're purchasing, etc., etc. It was kind of just more of a discovery step for me as a researcher, and also understanding throughout the rest of the team who are the ones that have the touch points with users. How do they communicate with users? Are they mainly gathering feedback, or are they actively communicating with them? Where are they storing that information? How are they storing it? So it's more just of an operational situation. So yeah, gathering the data from who is in touch with the users, where are they getting in touch with them, what do we already know about our users, and that was my first 30 days. Moving more into the 60 days was trying to identify, based on what do we already know about our users, what is the situation also with the product. So at that stage the product was live, so we were actively getting data from users from purchases as well, identifying, okay, so potentially here we have some issues, or this isn't going as was originally planned, maybe by the product owner, etc. Identifying potential areas where we can focus on research and gather more data, and also just setting up sessions with users, because I find that's important, even without a specific focus. Okay, we need to fix this, we need to find out about that, blah, 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 blah. But just to build rapport with users, identify potential power users, identify potential comrades from the user groups, identify potential users that would be good to use in future research projects, and start to categorize those users or pull those users as best as I could. I don't like to restrict users to specific pools, but get a general idea and set up some regular sessions with those users. Moving on to the 90 days, the picture is starting to grow around the product. I'm learning about the product. I'm identifying myself areas where maybe the UX could be improved. Also, feedback at that point, we're starting to get that feedback, and I'm able to start working and using that and identifying areas. Okay, we need to delve deeper into this. We need to dive into this, and you can start to prioritize research projects. You can start, obviously, you're starting to build up an understanding, a rapport with your colleagues as well. You're starting to understand from various stakeholders how they feel about certain things, how they feel about research as well, etc. So those are, I would say, are my priorities in the 30, 60, 90 days, more of moving from a discovery to a more in-depth interactive part of my, let's say, integration into my role and also with the users, and then more into 90 days of starting to actively work on projects, starting to actively implement feedback from the users, whether it be further research or actually on actionable items with the designers and the product manager. Working alone as a SOA UX researcher or designer can be quite isolating. So it seems cliche, but try as much as possible not to isolate yourself. Set up as many one-on-one sessions, group sessions with your colleagues in the product team or whatever fields you're working in. Make sure that those are set up, and make sure that they're regular as well. Because if you allow time to pass and maybe you start to withdraw as well. So I think that's really important. Setting up regular one-on-one sessions, check-in sessions with your team lead and colleagues. Another thing that's important is share what you're doing as much as possible. So if you're in a remote team, share on Slack or whatever platform you use. Keep up those sharing sessions and document everything you do as well to allow you something to share as well. But just also for yourself, when you are in a workshop or in a one-on-one session, that you have what you're working on documented. Because what I found is, if I had maybe a period that I was working on my own, came into a workshop session or with a team lead or whatever, and say, oh, what are you working on? And then your mind goes blank because you're not been communicating that much with people. You almost forget how to communicate. So I found that important, just to allowing my mind to be refreshed. And another thing, don't isolate yourself at home or in your personal life as well. Because if you're working a lot on your own, and if you're isolated also in your personal life, this can affect you mentally as well. So make sure that family's not too far away or friends are not too far away, even at home. Don't cut yourself off. Make sure you speak, you share. And I think that just keeps you kind of sane as well. So those are the strategies that helped me. So at the moment I'm in between work. So I've just recently finished a full-time role for a satellite image company as a UX researcher. So I'm in between work, as I mentioned. So at the moment my focuses are focusing on my volunteer work. So at the moment I'm volunteering for the Clinical UX Association, which is an association focused on monitoring the UX standards in healthcare. So currently working on a few white paper research studies, which is really super interesting. Healthcare isn't really something I've worked in before, so being able to do some in-depth research on different practices within the healthcare system and how maybe user experience standards, whether it is digital products or even just, waiting in the waiting room, how the experience is for a patient there. So focusing on those also experiences is something that is really fascinating. So currently giving my time and energies to that, and also continuing to focus on my podcast, so the UX On Minds podcast. So I've got tons of really cool, experienced and fascinating guests lined up. So that's really exciting. And yeah, just on the lookout also for my next full-time role. I transitioned career to UX. So the advice I would give for someone who's in a similar position now, they're trying to enter the UX field, whether it be research or design. So first of all, I would say network as much as possible. You've probably seen this before, but this was a huge catalyst for me in entering the field and also finding my place in the field as well, because again, it's by isolation. If you isolate yourself, it's a lot harder. First of all, you you don't have much of a guide, especially if you're self-learning, which I was. You don't have much of a guide, and you need that guide. You need that mentor. Even if you don't have just one mentor, networking allows you to have access to hundreds, if not thousands of mentors, whether that be through what they share, you reaching out to them. One thing as well to remember is don't go into it expecting to be mentored. I view it as a way to network and get to know people in the field, understand, I don't know, what they do in their day-to-day role, because that gives you also an insight into the day-to-day role of UX designer or researcher. But I think also how you approach them, and if you got into it expecting something back, either you'll get disappointed or the person that you reach out to will feel under pressure, because obviously they have their lives, they're obviously busy with their roles as well. So making sure you go into it not expecting something, or expecting a job, or expecting something to come out of it. So go into it just willing to learn, ask a question. Sometimes people won't respond, and that's okay. The second thing I would say is to volunteer. I know obviously it's not for everyone. I understand that if you are transitioning career, you still do need to earn a living, and maybe you do have a job that you're working currently. I was in that position. I was working almost full time and transitioning and learning UX. So it depends on your work schedule, but if you can find the time, even a couple of hours a week, to volunteer, that really gives you that hands-on experience and allows you to put into practice what you're learning. And also it gives you access to mentors as well. Like for me, I was able to work on some very experienced UX people, and I learned a lot. Also, you learn how to communicate your research results, for example. In presentations, you're able to learn how to hand over work and perform a handover to engineers. So all of these things you wouldn't get otherwise if you were just working on your own or working on maybe fake projects. So I think those are the two things that I would say are massive. Networking, getting access to experienced professionals for informal or formal mentoring, and secondly, volunteering to get real life experience and real life knowledge of how to work in a team, communicate your results, communicate designs.